Good afternoon, everyone. We have an exciting session ahead of us, post-lunch session. So it's a dreaded session for us, but we'll make sure to keep it as exciting as we can. It's an interesting topic, commercial, retail, real estate. We've all been doing that for years now. A lot of action. Just 2 days ago, we saw Knowledge Realty Trust list on the bourses, very successful, oversubscribed. So the theme generally seems to be extremely positive. We're seeing a lot of demand. All reports suggest that even this year we're going to see record numbers on the office leasing side. But what I'd like to start off with, maybe like a quick 35,000 square feet sort of feet view right from the top. Let Bhavik come in, understand how, in this sort of an environment, how is global capital sort of viewing India, both from a risk and an opportunity perspective, just a high-level perspective.
Sure. Global capital, hi everybody. Global capital is been viewing India very positively. The amount of interactions or sort of visibility which India has in the global capital market in terms of the real estate space is very important. It is the third largest market for large private equity players like Blackstone and Brookfield, apart from the New York or London, right? So overall, global capital views India very positively. They have most of the global capital funds who are into real estate have their offices in India and have a significant exposure in India. Recent trend, what we have seen is most of the funds are looking to now sort of raise a real estate, India real estate specific funds or India specific funds to cater to the need of the global investor community to be investing in India and taking a specific exposure. So in early stages, 2010 to 2015, most of the funds were global with a sort of exposure to Asia. Between 15 to 20, there were Asia-focused funds with an exposure to India, China. Now there are India-focused funds which is being sort of thought through and launched. So global investors are looking at India very positively. Lot of steps which has happened over the last 4-5 years, listing of 5 REITs, right? And the blockbuster listing of Knowledge Realty Trust, which was oversubscribed 30x times, is a testament that global investors do look at India positively. There are avenues for them to exit as well as enter in the market successfully and sort of generate the high teens return which they are looking at. They are very optimistic. The little bit of risk in terms of the time taken to sort of develop a commercial real estate park or sort of a retail mall and approval process is something which they look at, how do they sort of mitigate that risk. But overall, the perspective is very positive and we will see many transactions happening going forward.
Great, some great points. I think, you touched upon risk, right? So I just build on that and maybe bring Srivals in, given his experience on the legal side. What could be possible reforms, that could fast track this momentum that we see into Indian real estate from let's say global players? What are some of the possible reforms that you see that can help us?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to Reality Plus for inviting us for this good panel discussion. As I would start by saying, land reforms and labor reforms are two major things that need to be done. Land reform, because if you look at a World Bank study, 2/3 of the litigation today in courts pertain to land or real estate. And if you look at a journey, at least 20 years is taken in getting a dispute resolution done. So I think the starting point for any real estate is the land or the land bank. So having said that, the most important challenge which we have to do is to look at bringing a certain amount of land reforms. To say that, to start with, I think the first thing, whenever you go for approvals and the pre-phase of zoning change or conversions, you have to deal with multiple people, multiple levels of bureaucracy. So as you know, land is a state subject. So you have to, again, every state has a different. So what we need to start with, a centralized approach, even at state level. Maybe later we can look at a national approach, but the starting point should be that. Number 2 is digitalization of the land records. So today what happens is, land you have to check there is no provision like today if you go for a RERA, and I think as you will all know, once RERA came nearly 9 years back, things have changed in terms of transparency and documentation. Today, there is a QR code, you scan it, you know which project is happening. Similarly, I believe that land records need to move to a level where QR code and digital land records should be there. That makes it very easy for anybody to understand. And the most important thing there, which I believe would be, it will enhance the transparency and reduce a lot of corruption at the state level. There's a faster speed to it, and there is always a lag which is there. So I think these two are most important. And you know, some years back, I think around 10 years back, there was a major thrust, what was called as a conclusive titling system. So basically it was the central government would declare what the land is, and thereafter you don't have to. Today, your title records and your possession determines your ownership. Whereas in that system, which we are speaking of, a conclusive titling system, the government records will say, it's the government record says, you are the owner, that's it. And a national land bank would be there. So I think the biggest thrust which we need to see is to have land reforms. And I think digitalization and simplifying the laws, which already this government is doing, so things are moving the right direction. The second major thing which we need to do is, as you are aware, that construction and real estate gives you the second biggest employment after the agriculture. So I think we have a sizable number of people. It's a low-skilled and semi-skilled people. So the land reforms have always been an issue because of the way the curbs and, have to do compliances. The new 4 codes that have been launched have made it flexible and compliance has come down. You have a portal-based compliance. You have small, fixed-term employment allowed. You have a lot of schemes where the compliances and scheme for the workers and others are there. There's a construction cess laws are there. So I think there is a balance. Things have moved in the right direction, but there are still much more to do. If you are looking at a scale of, how, like the previous session said, Dubai is going at a, I think 5x level. If you have to build up the speed and to be ready, I think that has to happen. And the last would be providing infrastructure, for which I think we'll discuss in the subsequent segments. But I think infra, how we'll do that, connectivity will make a lot of game for us.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Some very, very relevant points. Sticking to sort of global capital, because, for real estate, capital is, of course, oxygen. You can't just survive and thrive without that. Bhavik, just back to you, how do you see the pattern of sort of deals evolving since you sort of work on a lot of these large real estate transactions, right? Particularly in terms of, what kind of developers, are there certain qualities that these funds are looking at before they deploy or partner with local developers here? And is commercial or retail real estate now tilting towards more patient sort of global capital with sovereign funds, etc., coming and buying in? So what's your view on that?
Right. So 2 questions. I'll answer the first one. All the global investors, including the sovereign wealth funds, are looking at developer partners who can show consistency, who has pedigree of developing the large projects and developing a projects of a certain size. Earlier, a sort of a 1 million square feet was sort of a project where people would sort of look at investing and building a sort of a risk capital and creating a portfolio of malls from or sort of portfolio of commercial assets, and then sort of selling it in the to a private equity investor, then offloading in turns to eventually sovereign wealth fund. Now the theme has moved to a larger, bigger spaces. So 2 million square feet, 2.5 million square feet is the new 1 million square feet in terms of the size, in terms of investable capital which people are looking at. People are looking at thorough diligence, the developer partner which can get through. People are also looking at ESG as one of the important metrics in terms of how the developer is building the building, how architecturally green shoots or sort of green parameters are sort of looked at. Also, whether developer can have a sort of a inbuilt source of green power to supply a certain bit of green electricity. That is one of the critical criteria which currently the investor community is looking at. Investor community is also looking beyond the CBDs now into sort of peripherals and suburbans, which is an sort of an important criteria where a lot of commercial buildings are sort of coming up and successfully sort of been able to sort of raise funds and develop. In Mumbai, if we speak around, right, Goregaon, Jogeshwari belt, where you have Nirlon, Nesco and Oberoi Commerce, is sort of a very successful belt which has come up with lot of investments and sort of global customers also coming in. Similarly, in the early development, it was sort of Mindspace, which had sort of come up, which was also sort of pretty important development. Similar thing or the story is sort of being built out in sort of Noida, similarly in Whitefield in Bangalore. So suburbans is the next sort of green zone where the funds are sort of looking at marquee buildings where they can sort of look at investing and do co-partnering with developers. So it's a sort of a very important thing for developers now to look at peripherals of the city once till the time new CBD zones or new developments are being encouraged by government who were the initial sort of builders of this CBD. If we take BKC, was initially developed by government for government offices, and then practically the developers and the investor community look at. One of the key things which sort of Rahul touched upon in the initial part is a sort of, a new CBDs coming up or new development, which would greatly drive this sort of demand generation as well as investor community. GIFT is one which is sort of being developed, but there needs to be a lot more green shoots there. On the second question, which was more around any other sort of peripheral activities which we can look at. I've already sort of mentioned ESG is one of the criteria, but also market closeness in terms of residential zone, in terms of infrastructure availability will be also very closely looked scenario for developers to sort of come in and sort of for investors to sort of partner with those developers.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think now that we've sort of got a high-level view of what capital is looking at, in this sector, we'll take a slightly sort of more constrained look at, where the markets are. So I'll bring Rahul here. What are some of the sort of inherent strengths that you see, in the office and real estate, sort of retail market as well? And where do you see the white spaces for growth in the next sort of 5 to 7 years? You yourself represent Awfis, which is, growing tremendously over the last sort of 5, 7, 10 years. Even in your business as well as overall larger real estate themes, where do you see the white spaces for growth? Bhavik did touch upon a few of them, like peripheral markets. But otherwise, what do you see as the big white spaces in the next 5 to 7 years?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Reality Plus. Thank you, Rahul. I think it's been one of the flavors of the market right now, the white spaces, right? And fortunately enough, close to around 75-80 million square feet was transacted in 2024. And we are very, very keen that I think it'll come up to around 3 digits very soon now. Now, out of that, just a few numbers, I think approximately managed office was doing around 15 million square feet odd spaces out of that. The GCCs, the white spaces, typically is doing around 8-9 million yet, but that growth is phenomenal for India. And that's what I think all of us from a real estate perspective have been eyeing overall, and Rahul can equally vouch, I think, from that aspect, that definitely a great infrastructure which is getting built in India and in cities across. Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore have been the primary focus. Pune, Bombay, Delhi is catching up. Noida is catching up too. So that's been the major focus where the GCCs are setting up their shops. Again, it's not been a story of a 5 lakh or a 4 lakh. It's been now million square feet that are being transacted. A lot of jobs being created. Again, a great manpower, I think, from that aspect that India has been able to deliver. That's what really accounts for that. The second is, I think, even the price of the real estate. Still the rentals in these cities are way more better compared to any other places in the world. So I think that's what been another focus here. Adding upon the retail aspect too. I think post-COVID, we've seen a complete shift, a 360-degree shift that has happened from an Indian mindset, from a buying perspective. All of us, for that matter, I think the malls and the retail part, not just online, offline, I think both have been growing tremendously on that aspect. Especially coming back on the white spaces, I think what we see, the tier 2, tier 3 cities are equally seeing a lot of shift other than the main 4 to 5 metro cities and tier 1 cities. But yes, tier 2, tier 3 cities has been another focus. We at Awfis have been really similarly vouching for it. It's been around 8-9 years. We were pioneer in venturing. We're right now in 19 cities, and out of which we see 19 cities of our portfolio is in tier 2 and tier 3. So cities like Chandigarh, Kochi, Indore, Jaipur, Bhubaneswar, major cities are coming up with great talent inside. Again, great infrastructure. There's been a lot of support from government also, I would definitely give for it. A lot of government policies have really helped. I think adding up to the points, I think from a real estate, land perspective, a lot of reforms are yet to be done, but the overall help from government as well as I think the multinational with the talent coming in, it's becoming a great eco space overall, which is making a right 5 to 7 years horizon for Indian real estate market to boom a lot.
So does sort of hybrid work or work from home also help these tier 2, 3 cities, in terms of talent being able to work closer to where they're from? But some of the challenges that we see are, lack of sort of quality developments in that market, and of course, from an infra perspective, power is not as consistent. So are those some of the challenges that you see as well at Awfis? Or, are you all seeing consistent supply coming in these markets? What's your sort of take on that?
So definitely, I think challenges are there, but good part is I think they're getting addressed also equally. They are understanding that yes, these mainstream challenges are very important for business to come in and the companies to come in there. I would just take an example of Indore as an example of a city. There's been a lot of focus near the airport, not just from government. I think a lot of big Infosys, say Wipro, and all of these guys are setting up their shops. I think they're encouraging the local developers, telling them how it's built and how it's done. And eventually, it's bringing the graph up. So yes, challenges are there, but equally, I think it's getting proportion. It'll take another 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line, but we are on the right roadmap to, I think, position us in those cities also equally. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think Srivals
Just to add on that point, I think the smart city project has done a lot of flip to the tier 2 cities. I think that's one place where I think the multinational companies and GCC would like to see a setup for their, a quality of life for their employees is also one important factor.
And just to add, at Grand Thornton also we have significant number of employees sitting in Indore and sort of Dehradun, serving global as well as local client. In fact, the size of offices would be sort of equivalent to what we have in Mumbai as well as NCR. So that's a sort of, you highlighted in terms of power supply is bit of a challenge, but it has been managed during at least the work hours. They have not, these tier 2 and tier 3 cities have not moved to a 24/7 culture, but they are in the zone from 9 to 6 culture where at least power and everything government is being able to manage, and there is an encouragement there with local authorities also to make sure these cities keep on growing and thriving and surviving. So facilities are being provided and it's been catered to, and there is a push from the state governments at least to sort of make sure that the next wave of GCCs and sort of actually look at tier 2 and tier 3 cities to sort of help them also grow and sort of accelerate their growth journeys.
Yeah, just to sort of build on that, I think Srivals, you were speaking about, infra. Is there anything that we can do that can sort of turbocharge this, this momentum that we're seeing, be it tax, be it infra, consistency in those regimes, anything that can help us there? You did touch upon a few things earlier from a capital perspective, but from a demand perspective, do you think there's something?
I think tax has been one of the most important challenges. I see two aspects to it. One, the timing when the change happens. We always see a GST change or a tax change happening midway down the year. Why can't, like an example, airport industry has a tariff regulation wherein a tariff is done in a 5-year bucket for it. So they are planned to know what's going to happen. All stakeholders know what's going to be a tariff over there. Similarly, for this, any industry, GST comes as a surprise. If you look at the online gambling, the typical gaming industry, suddenly a 28% hit them out of the blue. So I think tax, I will say consistency in terms of what's going to be there when they make their business plan is one of the most important thing. Number two, interpretations from the courts sometimes make or change the issues. And the last big challenge which I saw is interpretation of a court on an environmental issue. Last 1 year, we have not seen any construction activity starting because the approvals are pending because of a matter going from an NGT Bhopal to Supreme Court pending, which recently, week back, we got it through. So I think challenges are few, but I think overall, as we see, the economy has certain positive factors and real estate is supporting those, so things are moving up. But certain most aspect on tax consistency, in terms of understanding the policy change not happening, at least over a 5-year horizon when you make your business plan. As you know, Real estate sector and construction industry doesn't have a 5-year plan. They usually are with a 10 or 15 years horizon. So if you today cannot predict the assumptions correctly, it's very difficult for any business plan or investor to have it. Having said that, two other major benefits have happened. Adding to what Bhavik said is, number one, 10, 15 years back, we were the vanilla project finance, construction finance. Today, you got real estate funds, REITs, you got, different types of models that are coming, which see a lot of benefits to you. So I think things are evolving for the good. So you need to, as a stakeholder, work together to see where we take it collectively to a larger growth. I think that is the way I will see it.
No, fantastic.
And just to add, see, developers and funds are partnering at a pretty early stage where they have a tie-up or sort of an understanding. So even at the land acquisition stage, how the project will be developed, the partnership is there and the financing is available, which will accelerate the commercial and the retail development in forward.
Yeah, and you did touch about, looking at it from a 5 or 10-year horizon. And I'll bring Rahul in here. Today as an occupier, when you look at buildings, the earlier sort of way to look at it was just maybe location and cost, right? Are there more dimensions you're adding to it now when you look at it from a 5, 10-year perspective as, let's say, AWFIS or as a corporate occupier? Are you looking at it slightly differently now?
Yeah, I think that perspective has completely changed post-2020, if I'll be honest. Yes, there was a slight thought given on it pre-2020 also, but that angle has, and the dimension has totally changed post that. Sustainability has become very, very crucial now. I think all of us have been hearing that, your ECG norms, well certificates, your certifications and all. I think that's very, very crucial part of any kind of buildings that you are seeing. Yes, the new development itself, also I think you'll see a lot of developers are making those LEED certified gold, all of that sustainable buildings, not just across Bombay and I think across the country now that you're seeing. So the focus definitely is, all the companies are wanting that. So you will always pick up a building from that perspective, what kind of ESG norms, sustainability norms, LEED certifications the building has had. Obviously, I think the metro connectivity is now, with the metros coming up in all the cities in India, I think the connectivity becomes equally important from that aspect. Further adding up to it, I think the building management system, how the AI and the tech has been enabled in the building operations now, because all of that transformed into a much better building management, so your parking management, your building management. So I think a lot of prop tech is also come into place. So, and technology is taking over the coming years. So I think a lot of integration of technology with sustainability and the quality of the building that has been made, I think all puts together. That's where the funds come into picture. Funds like Brookfield and the Blackstones and all of those, Hines, all of those guys are making way better buildings. They're bringing in those technologies from internationally, and I think we are growing that path now. So those are the factors very keen and crucial now to pick up the path.
Yeah. And so I think just to sort of bring Bhavik in as well, right? So is the industry now sort of moving away from the traditional strata sale model to a more patient, sort of long-term view of the asset model? Is that what you're seeing as well, generally?
Absolutely. Industry, at least with the large developers and developers with the capability to develop, say, more than sort of 1 million, 2 million square feet of buildings, integrated buildings, they have moved away from strata sales altogether. They are looking at leasing model, pre-leasing it, and then looking at sort of their own set of listings, like recent enablement of small and medium-sized REITs also. So that strata sale model is sort of at least gone from the tier 1 developers and in most of the city centers areas or CBD areas. It's still there in sort of the smaller locations which Rahul sort of touched upon in Indore or sort of other area. But again, those are being sort of looked at part of the building where they are looking to own the majority of building and sort of lease those and how to create their value. Upfront financing, which has sort of helped developers hold on to those building and not strata sale, because strata sale initially was looked in a way as a replacement for construction financing. So that is one of the critical things with the financing being available from the global investors also. The model has changed completely to the long-term leasing model.
Just to sort of on financing as well, right? So bring Srivals in, is sort of green financing, green leasing, is that just a buzzword still, or are you sort of seeing that becoming a reality? I mean, we just recently saw Mindspace refinance a large portion of their debt with green financing, almost a 50 bip benefit on terms. But you think it's still early days, or is still some way to go?
So I believe that green financing and green leasing has been buzzword for some time, but as responsible citizens and with our own government looking at certain sunset date by which we need to have zero emission and bring it down, I think it's time for everybody to take it up. And I think we see a lot of trend happening, changes happening. So green financing and green leasing is, where there are clauses meant clearly saying you need to have some ESG goals or sustainability goals inbuilt. As of now, it is not mandated, it's more an endeavor to do it. But over the period of time, there are many benefits to both the sides. So whether it's energy efficiency, waste management or waste monitoring, or even in terms of, I will say, usage of materials that are used which are environment friendly, they in the long term or even in terms of quality of air indoors in a certain setup, these are very good points. And over a period of time, the efficiency ratio gives you a lot of savings in terms of cost also. Having said that, I happen to see a report, and I need to quote that grade A certified buildings have moved from close to 228 million square feet in 2016 to 418 million square feet. And there is a 83% growth over these years, which clearly shows that there is a value addition. And if I look at the important thing from a financing perspective, World Bank, when it comes and funds a platform, these are important ingredients. It is not a feel-good factor. It is a mandatory. So I think from there, if you start it, the type of funding you get at some substantial concessional rates, you definitely would like to take one step forward. Definitely the pain point is there because we are not used to it. So to starting with that, and I think if you look at majority of the major players today in the market, all are today looking at a basic requirement of being a LEED certified or IGBC certified, and that's a basic requirement. If any major corporate puts a mandate in the market, I think that's a precondition for that.
Are you seeing that some of your clients asking for that as well?
Yeah, I think major RFPs, major international clients, I think he was rightly saying, yes, those are the major prerequisites now that you have to, as a part of their submissions only, you require it, not just for building, I think for us also. When we are making the spaces, I think it's very important for us also to have those well certificates, IGBC certificates in place, so that not just externally from a building point of view, I think internally from an office point of view, all of those green initiations have to be done. And those are a definite prerequisite that everybody is needing for sure.
To add that, I think if the REITs are going to hit the market or you're going for an IPO, these are the extra premiums that will drive your price up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we're seeing that, across most of the top REITs today. I think they're putting that right up in center, in their sort of marketing materials as well.
And there are disclosure standards also being introduced by SEBI to sort of, actually inculcate an habit or sort of disclosing what are the SEBI sort of green requirements which the building or sort of the REITs are sort of looking at and sort of converting. So this gradually will also, have a wider implication on the market, because anybody who's looking at a potential listing or potentially sort of, a REIT would have to look at those green norms pretty closely. But again, just from a market dimension perspective, and I will just building on what Rahul said, like international tenants and international clients are looking at green certified buildings and positively, and one of the key factors they look at in terms of leasing. But at least from a domestic client perspective, that the theme is yet to pick up, is what I see in the market.
Yeah, but it's moving in that direction, I feel. I think increasingly that sort of fissure between international and domestic clients is kind of narrowing down. I think a lot of the parks that we work in, will have a fairly equal split of international and domestic companies. Aspirationally, that's where they want to be from a talent perspective as well. So, I mean, just sort of taking cue from the time, final sort of comments, right? I think just a little bit of crystal ball gazing, a minute each for each one of you maybe. What do you see as, sort of the biggest opportunities and risks, for this commercial/retail real estate over the next sort of 5 years? Just 1-2 opportunities maybe, or 1 or 2 risks that you see, whoever wants to go first.
So I think there is huge opportunities. I always say you have to look at the silver lining in the dark clouds. So today I will say the biggest threat would be geopolitical stuff happening around. You don't know what may happen. Number 2 would be the way the technology is booming up. I think AI is coming up. You don't know how the industry would be 2 years, 5 years down the line. So these are the dark process. But the opportunities, I believe, is that we will move to an ecosystem where the residence and office may be next door. It could be a full eco space of social space and the office space, residential, entertainment zones all together. You will be like living in a micro mini cities. You won't be anymore living, the hospitals would be there, the schools would be there, the restaurants, the malls, everything will come together. I think that is the biggest one. And infrastructure needs to go, the mixed use development needs to change. I think these will happen. And to finish on a note, I will say that if you look at the Indian market, it's a very complex market, but it's a very, for a person to win, it can do that. So we have Lenskart in the retail space having both offline and online models. We have a Zudio working along with Tata Click as the same entity. And lastly, we have events where we will see that multiple opportunities come. Like a DMart is there, it's a walk-in retail, but there is a DMart ready where you can go and get it also. So I think there are complex, how you analyze the market and take the opportunity will make all the difference.
Yeah. Rahul?
So definitely, I think opportunity is tremendous that we're talking about. I'll highlight a little bit about us that we were around, say, 3.5, 4 million 3 years back or something. Last year when we got listed, and we've seen that major points coming in. So all the sustainability points definitely came in from that perspective. But right now we are standing at 9.5 million, and this is why the Indian companies, the growth that we are seeing is tremendous, which is happening. Opportunities, I think from that aspect, a lot of major campus integrated are yet to be made. Yeah. Not just in tier 1, I think the major other cities are yet to develop like that. Possibly, I think integration of government with the bigger landlords or investors or developers can come in together and that catch up that opportunity, because the talent pool is immense. Yeah. The shift from the west as well as the east to coming to India has been tremendous in the last 1.5, 2 years. So I think it's an opportunity to cash in for India for the next 4, 5 years, 6, 7 years. The social infra is coming up. The overall infrastructure from a road to metros to everything else is, I think, building up. So it's a time to encash, I feel, to integrate. From a risk perspective, yes, I think these tier 2, tier 3 cities are yet not there. I think it could be electricity, it could be other infrastructures. I think government should have a little bit more focus there. It can become up. Technology aspect, I think it's yet to come the way it has to really be integrated. We are still on that line. So a lot of technology integration needs to come in, not just from real estate aspect, I think overall aspect. Last, I think the retail part of it. Possibly, again, Indian consumer has been open about a lot of online and offline both. But I think that openness and spending power has been increasing from an Indian customer market. I think that's the place and space that retail is right now. I think equally retail should be growing furthermore. I feel a lot of opportunity from that aspect. Yes, risk is which location, where. I think always a doubt between offline and online. I think that will still go on, but people will still go to malls, right, guys? We'll still continue buying online too. So I feel retail is yet to grow much more in India. I think that it's been a slow growth because of the COVID, but I think post that it's been phenomenal. Lastly, I think coming to managed office, we've seen a lot of managed office getting listed. The space is getting much more wider and better. I think from our aspect, not just Indian companies, international companies, both are opening up to that concept, and that's going to grow furthermore. And we are, likely to see a double-digit space take up in that too. So yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'll just talk about opportunities, right? Risks are there, but that can be mitigated and sort of come up. Opportunities is huge. The biggest mega trend which India has is the huge booming sort of population and the consumers available for your commercial space in terms of talent to sort of occupy, GCCs to come in. So that mega trend is here to stay, which is a huge opportunity for sort of the commercial office parks as well as retail. Second, in terms of retail, it is still baby steps which we have taken. It's only one REIT which has got listed. There's one listed company, but more needs to be done. Integration of the residential and retail and sort of say commercial is happening slowly and steadily. One of the unique examples is sort of the entire Oberoi vicinity in Goregaon, where you have now the commercial park. The mall and residential was always there. Similarly, the Sky City, again, it's a sort of an integrated mixed use, and this is a trend which I see a lot in terms of people sort of occupying those space, and those space will be sort of from a residential, commercial, retail, all three taken together would be a huge opportunity for India. The only enablement is availability of land, and having those land clusters being freed up from, say, encroachment, etc., and where government can help and sort of fast track this development and the investment cycle for India to sort of grow and progress in the next 4-5 years, and sort of together sort of achieve a Viksit Bharat plan. But huge opportunities and risk, I'll sort of, just sort of say that those can be managed. It has been managed successfully, and enablement is the key for driving growth in this sector.
Fantastic. I think very exciting times for all of us in this room, I think, associated with office, retail, or alternate asset categories. I think a great time to be in the country, great time to sort of invest here. So on that note, I think we've sort of hit our time, and if there's any questions that anybody has for our panel, or maybe we're at the end of our discussion then. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Rahul, for
Thanks,
the
Rahul.
nice session.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of. May we request you all to please stay with us on stage. May I call upon stage Vinayak Katkar, co-founder of Sell.do. Let's give him a big round of applause as we welcome him. And Vinayak, we request your presence on stage and help us in giving a token of appreciation to all our eminent panelists, starting with Bhavik. Bhavik, thank you so much for joining. May we request Bhavik to join us in the center. Let's get both of them in one frame, and a bigger round of applause from all of you. Bhavik, Vora, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, now we'd like to humbly invite Rahul Kanungo. Thank you for joining us. We'd request you to join us in the center. And let the applause continue as we encourage all our speakers. May we now invite Srivals Kumar. Srivals, thank you so much for joining us. Let's give him a warmer round of applause as we acknowledge his presence. And of course, this wouldn't have been possible without our session chair, so let's give it up for Rahul, Tatiya, Jain. Thank you so much, Rahul, for joining us and curating such an excellent discussion. May we request now all our panelists to step forward along with our presenter as one frame. And they say that when a group is on stage, you need to give them a much more louder and a bigger round of applause. Thank you to each and every one of them for joining us on the stage, and of course, being a part of the 17th edition of Realty Plus Conclave and Awards West right here in Mumbai.